So hi everyone. In the last class we have started the new provision that was about the cell. Okay. So we have discussed the basic concept of the cell, like what is cell, what is the primary definition of the cell. So what are the primary requirements of the cell? These things we have already discussed. Okay. So under section 54 we have discussed the definition of the cell, in which we have discussed that the transfer of the ownership on the property in exchange of the price paid, promised, or partly paid or partly promised. That is called the sale. For example, if I am paying someone a specific amount of the price, and in return that person is giving me something, that is called the sale. Whenever you are going to the shop, whenever you are going to any kind of the shop, at that specific shop, you are receiving something from the shopkeeper, and you are giving the accurate price of the specific thing to the shopkeeper, right? So this is called the concept of the sale, where we are giving something in return of something. When I have to pay a specific amount in return of the specific goods, right? So the transfer of the ownership of the property in exchange for a price paid, promised, or partly paid or partly promised, that is called the concept of the sale. Okay. So whenever we are talking about that how the sale is made, when the property is a tangible immovable property that is up to the worth of the 100 crore or more, it requires a registered instrument. And if the property is less than 100, it can be done by either registered instrument or delivery by the possession. And third one, when the seller hands over the possession of the property to the buyer or someone authorized by the buyer, that is called the delivery, right? So when we are coming to the point that how the sale is being made or how the sale is being done, we need to understand that the tangible immovable property requires a registered instrument, right? When the worth of the property, when the property is tangible, property is immovable, or the property cannot be shifted from one place to another. Tangible means the property is clearly visible. We can see the property, you can see the thing clearly. That is called the tangibility. Or the immovability means the property cannot move from one place to another, right? So when the property is tangible and immovable and it is up to the worth of 100 raise 100 or more, right? So in that specific situation, it requires a registered instrument. What does it require? It requires a registered instrument, right? And when the property is less than rupees 100, when the property is less than 100 rupees, it can done by either registered instrument or by delivery of the possession, right? So when the property is below 100 rupees, it can be done by the registered instrument or delivery of the possession. Then we are talking about the delivery, where we have discussed that when a seller hands over the possession of the property to the buyer or someone authorized by the buyer, then the delivery is said to be completed to the buyer only, right? So this is about section 54 we have discussed. Next, we are going to start from section 55 today, in which we have discussed about the rights and liabilities of the buyer and the seller. Okay. So when we are talking about the rights and the liabilities of the seller and the buyer, then we have discussed yesterday the duties of the seller and the duties of the buyer. Okay. So let us understand what are the primary duties of the seller and the primary duties of the buyer. First of all, when we are discussing under section 55 about the duties of the seller, the duties are in so many natures, right? For example, we can talk about the disclosing of the facts, providing the documents, answering question, executing the sale deed, take care of the property, handovering the possession. So these things are considered as the due. or duties of the seller to the buyer when the seller is buying something from the buyer, right? For example, I am going to your shop and I am buying something from you. So you are the seller and I am the buyer. So when you are selling me something, it is your primary duty, it is your primary responsibility to disclose the defect on that specific goods to me. It is your responsibility to clarify me if there is any kind of the defect in the good which you have provided me. Because as a person, if I am going to use that specific instrument or the specific goods, then maybe in future that good is going to cause me certain harm, right? So it is your duty to disclose me the defects or the damages that is being associated in the specific amount of the goods, right? So the another factor we have discussed that the providing of the title documents, right? Make all the title documents available for the buyer's inception. The title document means the disclosing documents, right? So when we are talking about the uh, uh, other title documents that is available that must be clarified, then it means when there is a person who is a seller and who is a buyer, when where the seller is giving something to the buyer or say the seller is selling something to the buyer, he is permanently and forever he is transferring the ownership of that specific good to the buyer. And after transferring the property, he has no authorization to continue as the buyer, right? So, moreover, it is the buyer's inception that he should carry all the title documents of the goods. For example, you are just selling me a grinder or you are selling me a sofa, then the title documents of the sofa, for example the company brand name, for if there is any kind of the warranty period in the sofa, then the warranty duration, then every all these small to big things that must need to be provided in the title documents, right? So when we are talking about the title documents, then we need to understand that all the title documents for the buyer conception must not be must be provided in a clear manner by the seller only. The third point is about the answering of the questions, right? So for example, if you are my buyer and I am your seller, right? So it is your duty to ask me as a buyer multiple questions regarding the product, that what is the nature of the product, how the product is being useful, how I am going to use this product, is this product gives a long warranty. So as a seller, it is my primary duty that if there is any question to me regarding the specific product, then I have to answer it in a proper and truthful manner. I have to clear with that person that what is the actual requirement of the thing. What is the actual thing I am selling? That person must know that. This is the right of that person to know that, right? So, hereby it is clearly said that the respondent to boys' questions are properly and truthfully, right? So, when we're talking about the answering questions, under that we have understood that respond to buyer's question about the proper and truthful manner, it is the responsibility of the seller also. The next point, execution of the sale deed. It means delivery of a properly executed deed upon the payment, right? So when we're talking about the sale deed, as like we have just discussed a few provisions back, that when there is a property which is being sold, which is not more than 100 rupees, it must need the registration. But when it is below 100 rupees, it might be registered or might not be registered. Let's have a check on this, right? So when we are talking about the thing which is below 100 rupees, it is not always mandatory to register the document if it is required that even if this document is very important, and if even if the document is not having the proper deed, right, or the document is not having a proper agreement, it is my duty to do the agreement, right? So this is how the thing works. The execution of the sale deed and delivery of a property executed upon the deed upon the payment is called the execution of the sale deed. And the last point is take care of the property, right? So when we are talking about the take care of the property, it it maintain the property and little documents until the delivery. That means the taking care of the property by the seller after after executing the sale deed upon the payment, where it happens that the buyer provides money to the seller and the seller keeps the money with him. For example, I am the shopkeeper here, I am the seller here, and you are my buyer, right? So here it happens that when we are talking about the execution of the sale deed, the deliver a properly executed deed upon the payment, right? Then comes the next part. Taking care of the property, maintain the property and little document until the delivery. Got it? That means the property and the title documents that must be taken care of till the date of the delivery. Then comes the handover possession, right? So how does it matter? So whenever you are mentioning that there is the handover of the possession, that means it is the property and title documents that is until the delivery, right? Then comes the handover possession, which speaks about to provide possession to the buyer after the sale is completed. Handover possession means he provide to the buyer after the sale is completed, right? And the last point about is the clear liabilities. It is about the paying taxes, rents, clear encumbrances until the date to date, right? So when we're talking about the rights, the duties of the seller, they are many. The first thing is about the disclosure of the fact. The second point, providing the document. Third, answering the questions. Fourth, executing sale deed. Fifth, taking care of the property. Sixth, hanging over. And seventh, clear liabilities, right? So whatever the pays, taxes, and rents that was left uncleared, that will be cleared until the date of the sale. Okay. So coming to the next point. Okay. So we have discussed about the duty of the seller. Now we are going to discuss the duty of the buyer, right? So what are the basic duty of the buyer as per se? Okay. The next point we are going to discuss about the duty of the buyer. We discussed about the duty of the seller. Okay. So there are major four duties of the buyer. The first thing to disclose the fact. The second thing to pay the price. Third thing to bear the losses. Then these are the situations in which the thing should be discussed, right? So when we are talking about the buyer's debt duties, it means it discloses a fact that inform the seller any known facts that affect the value of the property but are unknown to the seller. Okay, this is called the disclosing of the fact. Second point comes about the paying of the price, right? So tender payment at the time and place of the price is very, very important, right? So when we are talking about the buyer's duties, the duties first inform the seller to any known facts that affect the value of the relationship and affect the value of the value of the property also, right? So when we're talking about the disclosure of the fact, the disclosure of the fact from the seller of any known facts that affect the value of the property are always been unknown to the seller. Got it? For example, there is a land at the village which you are going to buy, and the cost of the land is actually 30 lakh or 40 lakh of the amount, right? But you have not bought the land since long. But what is happening that there is a another person, right? Okay, there is a third person. He is coming to you and he is telling you, he is guiding you that okay, so that person is guiding you that you should do that, you should do this with your thing, right? So the same thing when we are talking about the disclosing of the fact, inform the seller or any known facts that affect the value of my property or are unknown to the seller. Okay, got it? Then comes the price pay. Okay, tender payments at the time and place of the sale completion. What does it mean? Tender payment at the time and place of the sale completion. So when the price will be paid, it will be observed that the tender payment at the time and place of the sale completion. The sale must need to be completed with the paid price, right? Then comes the bear losses. Why so? Whenever we are talking about the buyer's duties, after the ownership passes, after the ownership transfers, the bear loses the same place. Okay, the bear loses the same page. Okay, so when we are talking about the next question, so whenever we are talking about the paying dues, right? We have discussed the four things. The first thing we disclose the buyer's duty to disclose the fact. If I am buying something from my original owner, or I am buying something from a person who is staying at the village, and unfortunately, due to the family things, that person has not gone out from the his hometown even. So he has no idea that what is happening there on, right? The person has no idea on that. Okay, the first thing. The second thing is it will be lead to disclosure of the fact. Okay, got it? The second point. The third point is so